the light bulb is not an issue because he claims they can see in the dark. That's what Moffat says.
Yeah, that's what I kind of figured.
But anyone could just come along, and what he says is put a bucket on one of their heads. And then he said, the way he phrases it, he says, then they would have weeping angels at their command.
What?
See, I don't know. Maybe that's a rule in Weeping Angel Society that if you ever get into like the mutually interlocked angel situation, then whoever comes along and frees them from it becomes their liege lord or something.
Yeah, that's like the lion with the thorn in its paw or whatever. It's like that. I forget.
Yeah, probably
like that fable or whatever.
It's probably like some kind of lion.
Yeah,
like you're thinking Warrior's Gate, right?
Oh yes, of course, of course I am.
Lions.
Romana gets the thorn out of the lion man's paw, and then that's why she has to stay there.
Out of Birok's paw.
Yes. Yeah, and so so Romana's gonna stay there because he's got to repay his life debt or whatever. I don't know.
Yep.
His Wookiee life debt.
Mm-hmm. I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is The Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
Yeah, so how long has it been since you last saw Blink? I mean, other than when you just watched it now.
A very long time, probably. There was a big, marathon that I did with my family when Matt Smith was announced.
Wow.
And so I think that was probably the last time I actually sat through Blink all the way.
Yeah, because back during the Tennant era, Doctor Who was still basically not a known quantity in America.
Right.
I mean, there was an American fandom, but it was still very much an underground thing, and now it's much more, sci-fi geek mainstream kind of thing.
Right.
So I would always find myself in the position of having to evangelize for Doctor Who, and I would just watch Doctor Who with people, and one of the things that I would often watch with them, sometimes as their first ever Doctor Who, would be Blink.
Yes, I know that, and you know how I know that is because that's what you did with me.
Was it? I don't even really remember that.
Okay, well, it was. We watched. There was a. It was a bunch of us. It wasn't just you and me. There were definitely other people, but that was the episode that you picked to show us, and so yes, this episode I guess holds a special place in my fandom, in that. It was the first episode I ever saw. Probably the first episode I ever saw, unless I watched an episode without knowing it.
Okay.
Because that can happen.
Of course.
But yeah, no. So this was technically the first episode I ever saw.
Well, I think it's good in that regard. And you know what? After watching it now, it had kind of fallen off my radar in this regard. But after watching it now, I would say this is still probably the single best episode to show to someone who's never seen anything of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like a brilliant introduction to the concept. Mm-hmm. Because it starts it's completely from the perspective of someone who doesn't know anything about the Doctor.
Yeah, that's true.
Rather like it's kind of like Rose in that regard. It's just better than Rose. Yeah. It's a better episode.
It is better than Rose. Yeah, I mean the only thing that you might come away with is that the angels are like this recurring nemesis. But
which they now are.
Well, that's true. It's become more accurate since when it was first originally written. Yeah. But yeah, no, and it is a very good introduction because a lot of the time is spent with Sally Sparrow, asking like, well, who is this Doctor guy? How is this? How do I time travel? It's good. I like it.
And another thing about that's kind of more interesting in retrospective than it was at the time is that one of the things that's often kind of criticized about Stephen Moffat's Doctor Who is that it's full of supporting characters, especially women, that the Doctor kind of treats as mysteries or problems.
Yeah.
Like River was a mystery that he had to figure out. Amy was kind of a mystery or a problem, both in terms of like the crack and then the pregnancy. And then obviously there's Clara. But this is just an inversion of that, where it's about a female supporting character who is trying to figure out the mystery of the Doctor.
Yeah, that's true.
So it kind of inverts that criticism before that criticism even existed.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that is actually kind of interesting. And not only, it's like completely inverted because the Doctor completely shrugs it off at the end. Like he's not like trying to figure out who this Sally Sparrow is. She just hands him a packet and is like, "You're gonna need this." And he's like, "Okay." And I like that, and he fully admits, like, things don't happen to him in the right order, and actually it's kind of interesting that concept is kind of introduced here, it's not really introduced here, but it's certainly an early example of Stephen Moffat, having characters not meet the Doctor in the right order.
Yeah. I think I have such clear memories of watching Doctor Who, because season 3 or series 3 rather was the first series I watched live.
Oh yeah, right.
So I have such clear memories of like anticipating this episode and then watching it and then sort of incorporating it into my vision of what Doctor Who was. Because that was the first time the series was the first time I had to do that. It didn't come packaged with Doctor Who as I received it. If that makes any sense.
No,
but this episode was kind of the first time I became aware of Stephen Moffat as the writer to watch. He's the one. He's the one you gotta keep your eye on. And when there's an episode that has his name on it, it's going to be good. Yeah, which isn't really that much the case anymore.
Right,
but it was definitely the case in the Russell T Davies era.
Yeah, that was the thing. I remember just definitely being excited every time it was a Stephen Moffat episode, and knowing that was going to come up. Like once again, when I started watching series 4, which was the first one I started watching live, I think at that point I'd obviously seen Blink, and I think I had seen The Empty Child / Doctor Dances and the Madame de Pompadour episode. What's that called?
The Girl in the Fireplace.
Oh yeah, Girl in the Fireplace. Yeah. So I'd seen all those, and I think at that point I had sort of worked out that Stephen Moffat was one, like you said, the one to watch, and I definitely had that similar excitement going into Silence in the Library. Yeah, wow. Yeah. So yeah, definitely, and I mean, in some sense, that definitely lived up to my expectations. I mean, in retrospect, I don't think Silence in the Library is the best of his episodes, but at the time, it seemed magical to me. But yeah, no, I mean, his episodes definitely were more precious when he was only writing one a season or a two-parter a season. And now that he does, so many of them, he does like the Christmas special and, the first episode of the season and the finale and some of the ones in between. And it's less special. And I think that kind of shows because, I mean, he just, in my mind, it just always seemed like, oh yeah, Stephen Moffat is like a caliber above everyone else or whatever. I don't know. And, and that's kind of, I don't know if that's diminished necessarily, but like the magic is kind of worn off now that he's forced to write bigger, like to write more episodes to sort of fit a bigger story arc.
I think one part of it is that his episodes seemed not so much The Empty Child and the Doctor Dances, but his episodes seem kind of format breaking. Mm-hmm. Like they're clearly very different from what was around them, and part of the reason for that, I think, is that Russell T Davies had a policy of rewriting other people's episodes, like heavily editing scripts. Except I think he did not do that with Stephen Moffat's. I don't know whether that was a contract thing or just a high degree of respect for him. But the Moffat episodes are all Moffat, whereas some episodes during the Russell T Davies era that aren't credited to him were largely rewritten by him.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, one example of that, I think, is The Empty Child in the Satan Pit. I think that was what it is. No, The Impossible Planet and the Satan Pit. Yeah. The Empty Child and the Satan Pit are not a two-parter. And if they were, they would be a very strange two-parter.
Yes.
Yeah, The Impossible Planet and The Satan Pit were, I believe, largely written by Russell T Davies, as I think was The Fires of Pompeii.
Ah, interesting.
And I think I've also heard that the Paul Cornell two-parter in Series 3, the Human Nature and Family of Blood one, had a heavy Russell T Davies presence in it.
Huh. I didn't realize. I mean, I knew that he was like showrunner, so obviously, his final say was, what went. But I guess I never really realized, like, to what extent he sort of micromanaged that. But that's interesting. I don't know, and it's just weird, kind of, that, like, those Stephen Moffat's episodes were so different, and it's weird that now, these seasons have been almost like that in the same way, where it's kind of it's not like contained in that like box of like 45 minutes. It's now an entire season is his his idea of like what a season of Doctor Who should be, and it's sort of I almost feel like it's like it's like too much almost.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't want to turn this episode into like a Moffat bashing or anything like that.
I don't want to like I don't like, I'm not saying that like I'm not saying that Moffat should go. I mean, I just I don't know. I just kind of I miss the old days. I miss the old days where Stephen Moffat had one episode and he did a really great job with it, and I just look forward to and his episodes were just a treat I looked forward to once a season. I kind of miss that.
Yeah, well, even by this point, by Series 3, I mean, everyone knew, eventually Russell T Davies is going to go. Mm-hmm. He's not going to stay on the show forever, and who's going to take over after he leaves? And everyone was kind of like, well, I hope it's Stephen Moffat.
Yeah.
We all couldn't wait for Stephen Moffat to take over the show.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that there isn't someone like that now.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, that again, I feel like we might have talked about that before. It is weird that there's no. I mean, well, I would say if I had to pick someone, well, and I've said this before, I would pick Neil Gaiman, but that's unreasonable. So there's no reasonable choice, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and even with Neil Gaiman, for instance, I know that The Doctor's Wife that had a lot of Stephen Moffat help with the script too.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question was. How much does Stephen Moffat rewrite other people's episodes? I don't
know as much. I don't know if the information is out there, but I kind of get the feeling that he probably doesn't rewrite as much. I don't know though. I just don't know.
I mean, it's interesting because it definitely felt like Stephen Moffat's episodes like Blink definitely had like its own almost its own tone, I guess, and I don't really get that clear of a sense of it anymore. Or at least maybe it could be that I'm just not looking for it. But it seems like Series 7 as a whole kind of has sort of the same tone, and it could just be that maybe the other writers just kind of pick up on what Stephen Moffat's doing and kind of take that same tack. I'm not super sure.
Yeah, it could be that. I think another reason that Blink in particular has very much its own tone is a lot of that is down to the direction.
Oh, that's true.
And the director, whose name I had but forgot, I think it's Hetty MacDonald. Yeah, who has never directed another Doctor Who, Hetty MacDonald, and so much of the direction, the way things are shot in this, and the way things are paced, and just so much about it. Like even the music sounds kind of different from the usual.
Yeah.
Even it's still Murray Gold, but it's got a very particular sound to it.
Yeah.
Just the episode just feels completely different, and it's just really kind of, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, and it's singular, and it sort of demands to be noticed as a thing in itself.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think that, like, I'm sure that at some point Stephen Moffat is going to leave the show, but, when that happens, I can't really imagine. I mean, I kind of want him to go back to writing one episode a season, but I don't think that that's reasonable to expect, because I wouldn't think that he'd want to give up his current job as showrunner of Doctor Who and going back to just plain old writer of Doctor Who, and that seems unreasonable.
Yeah, that seems kind of unlikely to me as well. I mean, maybe in the distant future he would return to it.
Yeah.
Like, I know Robert Holmes in the classic series wrote over a period of many, many, many years. His first work for the show was in the Second Doctor era, and his last work for the show was in the Sixth Doctor era. So,
oh wow,
you can sort of imagine years down the line, him coming back for an episode or something. But yeah, that's kind of unlikely. As it's kind of unlikely that Russell T Davies would write for the show again.
Yeah. And I'd be interested to see Russell T Davies come back to write an episode.
Although, yeah, you know what, I kind of would too, because I know at the time his plan was to move out to America and do new projects in America, but for personal reasons, I think he ended up moving back to the UK, so maybe he could.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows?
Did it hold up to, like, how well you remembered it?
It did, it really did. I
actually was surprised by how good it was.
Yeah. I was thinking to myself, why haven't I done this sooner? But yeah, no, it was a good episode, and normally I don't like episodes that don't feature the Doctor or the Doctor's companion all that much, but I liked this one. Obviously I liked this story really. I liked the story a lot the first time I saw it, but I don't know, it really held up well.
Yeah, I think one really good thing is Carey Mulligan's really good.
Yeah.
Which is probably why she's gone on to become a major Hollywood star.
I guess that makes sense. That kind of follows.
Yeah, which unfortunately makes it highly unlikely that she would ever come back to Doctor Who.
Right.
Because that was something kind of people hoped for a while.
Yeah.
Because Catherine Tate came back to Doctor Who after doing one episode. So
yeah.
So why not Carey Mulligan?
Yeah.
But I think she's probably kind of moved on by now.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, she'd make a kind of cool companion, I think.
Yeah. She definitely would have, which I think is kind of how her character is supposed to be. She's like a companion, even though she's not a companion.
Yeah. Her performance was very good.
There were only two things about this episode that I thought were kind of disappointing.
Oh.
Two flaws in the episode.
Okay.
One, and whether this is even a flaw is arguable, because I've heard people argue that it's not a flaw.
Okay.
Is that the angels are stone when nobody's looking at them.
Okay, yeah.
And one thing that I sometimes hear people say is like, well, the camera's looking at them, which I kind of don't buy. I don't think that makes any sense.
I've heard that theory before, and I hate that theory.
I'd rather just accept it as something that doesn't make sense than adopt that theory to make it make sense.
So, yeah, but at the same time, there are a ton of reflective surfaces in that house.
True.
It is conceivable. It's not like it isn't very likely, but it's conceivable that, at some point the characters could see the angels out of the corner of their eye. There is a shot when I think it's Sally is leaving, and there's the angels in the windows looking out at her. And yeah, all right, who knows? It could be that no one was looking at them then, but who knows? Maybe there was a spy satellite overhead that was looking at them. I don't know. You are not shown definitively that there is no one looking at them. And yeah, there's kind of you could pretend that, oh yeah, because Doctor Who exists in a universe where, the camera is an observer and causes things to happen or not happen or whatever. And this is Doctor Who transcends television and is actually, part of your participation. Hey kids, you gotta help protect the Doctor from, the angels.
Well, that was our theory with Votan, wasn't it?
That's true. But I think it's a little bit more likely with Votan.
Yeah.
He was he knew things that were impossible to know,
like square roots of numbers. Yeah, the way I kind of make sense of that is I don't think that there are any shots where angels are stone, no one's looking at them, and all four of them are there.
Right.
So I think as long as you can kind of assume, okay, one of the angels is looking at another one of the angels, which is allowed because the only situation that causes them to freeze up are the ending of the episode when all of them are looking at each other,
right?
Where each angel can see the three others.
Mm-hmm.
So there might be. I bet if you're a bunch of weeping angels, sometimes you just freeze each other up.
Yeah,
it just happens.
It's probably like a social faux pas, but it does happen.
And as long as you're not in a situation where you're all freezing each other up, you're probably okay.
Yeah, that can happen sometimes, and I just imagine a conversation between these angels well, this is awkward. Then you have to get another angel come in with a sheet, and
exactly.
cover them up so that they can one by one free themselves. Yeah, I imagine that occasionally happens. Maybe that's what an angel ambulance is. Angels can't die or anything, but occasionally they've got to have EMTs who are trained to separate the angels so that they can stop looking at each other and all be free again. I'm sure that must happen.
I watched the episode with the audio commentary.
Oh, really?
I watched it without and then with. And there are actually two different audio commentaries, one of which is on the DVD and features Stephen Moffat and Murray Gold. And there's not anything all that insightful in the commentary, but it's more just them kind of chatting. And then there's another one with Julie Gardner, who's the executive producer, and a couple of other people that was available through the BBC website, which I could not find. The link on the BBC website is dead, and I couldn't find the file anywhere else. So that made me sad. But anyhow, he suggests that at the end of the episode when they're all looking at one another, the light bulb is not an issue because he claims they can see in the dark. That's what Moffat says. I
mean, yeah, I've heard that complaint, like, oh, when the light bulb goes out, they'll be free again. But I mean, come on. They are quantum-locked angels. Do you really think their eyesight is based on the visible spectrum? Come on.
They have they're predators. They have predatory senses and
the heat vision.
Heat vision, yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
They have although if it were heat vision, since they're cold stone, that wouldn't.
Yeah,
it's got to be something else.
That's right.
I don't know. They just have really good eyesight in the dark.
They probably. Yeah. Come on.
So that was one flaw. The sometimes people aren't looking at angels flaw, which is just a flaw with life in general. Sometimes people aren't looking at angels. The second flaw is that when Larry is writing the transcript, it's just squiggles. I think when people are writing on camera.
Wait, okay. See, I know very little about shorthand. I thought, like, based on this episode, I thought shorthand was just squiggles. Is that not the case?
Oh, well, I don't know shorthand, so maybe what he's doing is shorthand. I know very little about shorthand.
Okay.
Now I'm doubting. Maybe it is.
Because she
specifically. I just thought it was squiggles.
Well, because she specifically says to him, like, "Oh, you write shorthand," or So I thought, so I just, because once again, I know nothing about shorthand. I assumed that this was shorthand, because shorthand is a thing that I forget exists.
Yeah, it's an entirely different language, really.
Well, right. I mean, because it also seems kind of unnecessary in this day and age, because people generally, if you need to get something down, you type it, and when you type, and it seems like typing you can do a lot, like touch typing you can do a lot faster than you can do writing with a pen. That can obviously change, but certainly there are people trained to type dictation, and they can type very quickly. So it seems like shorthand is less necessary than it might once have been.
Well, also you can, make an audio recording of something,
right,
and then type it at your leisure.
Right. Yeah. And if this episode had been written in 2013, I know we've talked about Stephen Moffat not knowing about technology or whatever, but I feel like the solution would have been to record it on one's cell phone. Like, Larry would have taken out his cell phone, his smartphone or his camera phone, and would have been like, oh, I'm gonna, or he would have filmed it.
Yeah.
And posted it to Vine.
Yeah, he would have Vined it. Well, it has to be 6 seconds long.
Oh, that's true.
But in one sense, though, this episode is kind of prescient because it's set in 2007, which is a time period when DVD stores could conceivably exist.
Yeah.
However, when you flash forward to 2009, it's no longer a DVD store; it's an antiquarian bookstore and rare DVDs.
Yeah.
Which that would conceivably happen. Like you can't be in business just selling DVDs anymore.
That's right.
Well, actually, I don't know if that's true in the United Kingdom, but I know it's true in the United States.
Yeah. How's their Netflix quality over there?
I don't know.
I know there's licensing restrictions. So maybe Netflix is not as great in the UK as it is in the US.
Maybe.
Or maybe Netflix still exists in its DVDs by mail. Maybe that's hugely popular over there. I know
it still exists here, and I use it actually.
Yeah, I know you can, but I'm just saying I don't think many people do. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, it was prescient. That's true. They were really onto something, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, actually, it's funny. I forgot that last scene took place in the future, or the future for them.
Yeah, it takes place in a year later, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a year or two later. It took place around the time my local DVD store closed.
Well, there you have it. Yeah, it's that's kind of an interesting thing, is that adventure that the Doctor and Martha were having, is that adventure ever like elaborated on? I mean, I know it's just kind of an offhand thing, and I'm sure Stephen Moffat wrote it as just kind of an offhand thing, but is that ever like in books or other media?
I don't think it has been.
I think someone should get on that.
Yeah, well, there's so much you can get into here. Like, you could get into that adventure. You could get into, what happens if you free the angels. You could get into that. There's so much rich potential for fan fiction.
That's right.
Another thing I actually thought of as potential for fanfic in this is that there are all these DVDs that out there in the world, and apparently all of them not only have this Easter egg on them, but are authorized control discs.
Right.
That you can just take any copy of any one of these 17 DVDs and just put it into the TARDIS, and it will authorize you to go to, 1969.
Well,
so free trip to 1969 if you can get into the TARDIS.
Well, okay, actually, I would argue that you cannot do that anymore.
Why not?
Because the pre-recorded Doctor message says valid one trip. So I think that...
You don't think it's one trip per disc?
Why would it be?
Well, that would seem to be the easiest way to do that. I don't know. I don't know how this works. I mean, I suppose it could be either way, but I mean, I thought it was programmed into the disc that it was only.
Well, all right. So let's say that you have a key that is encrypted into the disc. Let's say that the key is Charlie, and you put the disc in. The TARDIS reads that it's Charlie. And let's say that all discs everywhere say Charlie. The TARDIS knows not to accept any more Charlie discs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes some sense.
That's how I interpreted it. Because, I mean, that would be... I mean, you could do that. You just get DVD after DVD. And, interesting question. What happens to the DVD after? I mean, like, Sally loses that DVD. What if that's, like, her favorite movie?
Yeah.
She's only got...
It's one of only 17.
Right. So now she's one DVD. Did the Doctor ever reimburse her for that? I mean... He just kind of takes off. He could have at least given the disc back. Although, no, it didn't happen for him yet, so it wouldn't work.
Here's another question. How many DVDs do most people have?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Or did they have in 2007?
Oh, that's true. Well, I know that when I was in college in 2007, I did not own that many DVDs, but that's because my family owned most DVDs, and I never really thought about them as separate things for me to own. I just always thought like, oh, well, my parents will get this DVD because I'll say that this was a good movie, and then I'll watch it at my leisure. I don't know. So, I mean, at the time, as a poor college student, I did not own that many DVDs in 2007. But how many DVDs did the average person own? I don't know.
Yeah, I just that's kind of curious to me because I mean, he says you've only got 17 DVDs, and then
right.
She rolls her eyes at this, but. I mean, the thing is, he's like a movie nerd and like a DVD conspiracy theorist. So obviously, he's going to have a lot more DVDs than your average person.
Right.
Whereas she probably is somewhat more average. So maybe that's about how many DVDs you should expect a person to have in 2007.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, when you think about movies, I mean, like, not everyone just buys every movie that they saw and liked. I mean, not even I do that, but I mean, I do it with a lot of movies, and I probably do it above average. But I don't think many people do that, and 17 actually seemed kind of high, because I don't think I own. I mean, it's kind of apples to oranges, but I don't think I own 17 PS3 games, and I've owned a PS3 for years. I know that it's a kind of a different thing, but that's I don't know that like if someone said like, hey. I've got 17 PS3 games. I'd be like, wow, that's a lot of PS3 games.
Well, I own more than 17 Doctor Who DVDs.
Well, that's true.
Like, I'm looking at them on my shelf, and I've got easily 50.
Well, are we counting a box set as being just one DVD? Like, because I mean, those add up pretty quick. I mean, I've got a lot. I have, at the very least, I have. A lot. I don't know how many are in. Let's see, there's 6 discs generally in each season, right? So I must have at least 36 discs just from series 1 through 7, and I don't have that many classic series. So, but I still have a lot. I guess what we're saying is that Sally Sparrow was not a Doctor Who fan.
I guess not. Although she might have become one after this.
That's true. Yeah, she might have Netflixed those those classic Doctor Who DVDs.
Yeah.
Who knows? Something very, very unusual happened when I was watching this episode. Something that has not happened in a very long time, and that is I heard a line that I'd never heard before.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's when the detective guy, when he lands in 1969, and the Doctor is talking to him about everything that's happening, like, time travel, don't go swimming for half an hour. He says that you were touched by an angel, probably the same one because you ended up in the same year as us. And I'd never heard that line before.
I had heard the line before, but I hadn't thought about it as much. The Angels Take Manhattan kind of implies that the Doctor doesn't know that.
Right.
Because he says, Amy asks him, if I let the angel get me, will it send me to the same place it sent Rory? And he says, I don't know. Nobody knows. And then it turns out that it does work.
Yeah.
So whereas this episode seems to imply that the Doctor is aware of that already.
So do you think that the Doctor was lying to try and convince Amy not to do it?
Oh, he could have been. Also in this episode he says probably. So it could be that.
So that was a running theory of his.
Yeah, confirmed.
Yeah. The Doctor's a good scientist. He's got theories that he can accumulate more evidence for, but he doesn't know for sure, so he's just being a good scientist.
Now it has to be replicated by someone else.
Yes. Independently verified. But yeah, so that I find interesting because, we discussed, when the Angels took Manhattan, we were talking about how, they'd kind of set up their own farm system. Well, that's discussed in the actual episode. But it's interesting because I guess the goal would be to get all of the people they were farming back to approximately the same year. So it would require a lot of orchestration, because I'm assuming it's like maybe tuned to the Angels' biology where they can only send a person back to 1 year or whatever.
Or maybe it's just a matter of eating habits.
Okay.
It's just like a habitual thing.
Okay, so it's just easy. Some angels, keep their elbows on the table when they shouldn't.
Exactly. Like different angels like different meals.
Right. Yeah.
And so that will mean that they send people to times and places differently.
Right. Yeah. Maybe everyone has their own unique potential energy signature, and that actually it kind of makes sense that they would, and so that's digested in a unique way, and maybe but like even though they're unique, they kind of share similar properties. Like some people will die of old age, and some people will found a startup company and make millions. And those are so maybe there's one angel that just goes for all the CEOs and ports them back to 1920. But yeah, so I think that could very well be that there's just a certain way in which some angels digest time energy, and that produces like a similar year. Yeah. But anyway, so the point is, so they would have to kind of orchestrate that, I would think, in order to do the farming thing successfully. But maybe not. Maybe if they concentrate hard enough, they can, eat something different. I don't know. This doesn't make sense, actually.
Maybe it doesn't.
I don't know. But, yeah, you have to wonder if it is a process they can control or not. But yeah, maybe they just prefer certain years. But that also means that there's a bunch of people going to the same year. Shouldn't they be able to join forces and, have like a sort of support group?
Well, maybe they don't go to the same place.
Oh, I guess that could be. Yeah, it does seem kind of random. I mean, maybe it's not random, but it seems because Nightingale, what's her name? Kathy.
She's sent to Hull.
Yeah. So, because that's interesting, because I would have thought they just get transported back in time, but they also, I guess, get transported back in space. Well, they don't get transported back in space, but maybe is Hull backwards from London?
Yeah, maybe it is back. Maybe it's whatever way you're facing. It's
yeah, so that could be. But it's interesting because that doesn't seem to happen in The Angels Take Manhattan. And is that the only other story where we see the angels change, zap people back in time?
Yeah, they don't do it in Time of Angels and Flesh and Stone.
Right, and that was the last time we saw them.
Yeah.
Oh, we saw them briefly in the God Complex, but they weren't real angels.
Oh, true.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking of. Or I'll pretend. So yeah, I guess these are the only 2 episodes we have to go on. and it seemed like it was more controlled in The Angels Take Manhattan.
Mm-hmm. It does. It could just be because in that they had that, they had their agricultural plan, whereas with this they were foraging.
That's true. That's true, and actually that kind of makes sense because humans developed like the lactose tolerance after farming had started because we were ingesting cow's milk even into adulthood, which is very unusual for mammals because most mammals become lactose intolerant after they reach like a certain adolescence or whatever.
If you say so.
So, I'm pretty sure I'm not making this up.
Okay, I'll believe you.
So it might be mirroring that, in that they now have control over where they put people. I actually like this theory.
Makes about as much sense as anything else.
Yeah. So this is once again the hunter-gatherer angels, or the lonely assassins, as the Doctor calls them.
Mm-hmm.
That's it's kind of weird to think about. I mean, I guess they could be assassins, though they don't. I think it's certainly implied, at least by the end of this. I think by the end of this episode, that they're pretty much just doing their thing. Like, I mean, they're not like intentionally killing people, although they could.
Well, yeah, because in Time of Angels, they're definitely intentionally. Yeah. They're acting out of a long-term plan. Like which is why they're not feeding off people. They're just kind of killing them.
Right. Yeah. So and they do that very well.
So, what did you think of the very, very, very ending of this episode?
The implication that anything could be an angel?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it fits with Angels Take Manhattan.
It definitely fits with Angels Take Manhattan. That doesn't necessarily mean that I like it though. Because I mean, well, when I saw that final scene, it was kind of like a scene. Or just like a sequence of shots directly addressed to the child in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were no children in the room when I watched it, but I mean, the implication is that, there's going to be at least one child watching when you're watching Doctor Who. That like, hey, kid, anything can be an angel. Freak out about everything. And I don't know.
I feel like that ending is sort of the televisual equivalent of if you're telling a ghost story and then at the end of the story you go, ooh. I feel like doing that at the end of a ghost story and doing that little montage at the end of this episode are just functionally the same thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, so I mean, in a sense, I think like, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, anything can be an angel now. And I never thought it was like serious. I mean, like, Stephen Moffat definitely builds upon that in later angel stories. Like anything could be like an image of an angel becomes an angel, and all that stuff. And he sort of builds upon that idea. And I mean, obviously, ultimately in The Angels Take Manhattan, he does seem to imply that anything can become an angel. Although, yeah, the process by which that happens still remains a mystery. But yeah, it definitely that final scene definitely set that kind of concept up that like, oh, anything can be an angel. But whether or not, I mean, I didn't think he was serious.
And now we know he is.
Yep.
Yeah. With regard to the image of an angel becoming an angel,
mm-hmm.
Well, the Doctor says in this episode that they are creatures of the abstract.
Yeah.
So I guess, given that kind of makes sense that, okay, maybe that's how they reproduce.
Yeah, there you go.
But in the end of this episode, Sally Sparrow hands the Doctor a bunch of photographs, including photographs of angels. So there are angels on board the TARDIS when the Doctor gets back to the TARDIS.
Yeah, that's true.
That's not good.
No, it's not good at all. Yeah, you gotta wonder about that. You gotta wonder, yeah. I don't have an answer to that.
I don't think there is one.
Yeah, I mean, it could very well be that right after the events of Flesh and Stone, the Doctor like grabs that folder and is like, I can't keep this around anymore, and he throws it out, or burns it, I guess. Because I mean, you can't just throw it out. I mean, the angels are still there.
You can't just throw out an angel.
Got to recycle that.
Exactly.
I mean, and I think that this episode was certainly written with the intention that, like, oh, this is just going to be a one-off thing. We're not going to do anything else with the angels. And it's just a really cool monster that we just thought up and, we're doing a cool thing with it. And then they realized that was crazy and that they wanted more money, and and did more. I mean, and certainly there were more stories to tell, and I think that was definitely a smart choice to do more. But it seems like that this was not a perfect episode in that it didn't set up a perfect recurring monster.
Yeah, it set up a monster that was very specific to the story that was being told in this episode.
Right.
Which I think that's true of most of the recurring monsters in Doctor Who. Like,
yeah,
the Daleks in the Daleks were never intended to be recurring monsters, and the way they're sort of set up in there is like they run on static electricity, which they gain from the floors.
Right.
So you kind of have to bend the concept.
Yeah.
In order to make it work in a long-term way, which that's fine, I think.
Yeah.
One thing that I learned from the commentary with Stephen Moffat and Murray Gold, Moffat was talking about how during the process of writing the episode, he forgot what the ending was supposed to be.
What?
At some point, he had the idea for how the angels were going to be defeated, but then he just completely forgot how the angels were going to be defeated. And so he had to call up Mark Gatiss, and they were kind of looking at what he had written so far and kind of trying to reverse engineer what the ending was supposed to be. And they eventually picked up on the fact that in every piece of the script, whenever he refers to the angels, he's always referring to the fact that there's four. Why is there four? And he eventually goes, oh, so they can be on the four sides of the TARDIS, and when it disappears, they'll all be looking at one another.
So,
which I think that's kind of funny.
So, but were they sure that, like, was when that happened, like, Stephen Moffat was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, or was he just like, oh yeah, sure, that probably was it?
That's what I gathered. I gathered from the anecdote on that as he said it on the commentary that was what he intended all along, and he just forgot it. And then he sort of came back around to it.
Because that would really bother me if that was not the original way that he thought to defeat them. Because then I would just be obsessing over like how he originally thought he'd do it. Oh man.
Well, because it's so good and clever.
Yeah.
Because I think Moffat's really actually kind of good at this. He works laying out the rules. Okay, this is how this bad guy works, and these rules mean that it's a threat to you. Mm-hmm. But then in the end, it's those rules that are what allows the Doctor to come up with a solution that uses those against it.
Yeah.
I think there's a for instance in the Empty Child, when the Doctor kind of tells it to go to its room.
Yeah.
And things like that. I feel like that's something that Moffat usually does pretty well. So it does seem like there's no other way this story could have ended. Did you know that this is one of 4 stories in New Who that is an adaptation of an existing story?
Is it really?
Yes, it is. I would not lie to you about that.
Well, I'm glad. But it was Stephen Moffat's idea.
Oh yeah. Stephen Moffat did a story did a short story about the Ninth Doctor. In the Ninth Doctor Annual or something like that. And it didn't have the concept of the angels, but it did have the concept of the Ninth Doctor sort of getting separated from the TARDIS and stuck back in time and communicating with a girl named Sally Sparrow. By means of a pre-recorded video message. I actually haven't read the story, but it's available for free on the BBC's website, I think.
Oh, it sounds interesting.
In the story, Sally Sparrow's a little girl, and it's called What I Did on My Christmas Holiday by Sally Sparrow, I think. So, that's out there.
That's interesting. Because I knew about the Lodger, but I didn't know about that.
Oh, no, then it's 5, because I wasn't thinking of the Lodger. Oh, because the Lodger, this Human Nature, is based on a 7th Doctor novel.
Right.
Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel are based very loosely on Spare Parts, which is a Big Finish audio. And then Dalek is based on a Big Finish audio called Jubilee.
It's always interesting when I find out that a story that I thought was just a complete original creation actually is based on something. Because I don't typically seek out the other stuff that's not the television show, although I do always enjoy it. But it's also cool how writers can have ideas that they then flesh out on screen in interesting ways.
Yeah. Apparently, the story was very different because it didn't involve the angels. And everything.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Kind of meshed together one idea with another. That's writing, I'm assuming.
Probably. That's probably writing. The story to follow Blink in our random selection of stories from Old Who, New Who, and Not Quite Who. And the random story selected is The Girl in the Fireplace.
Ah.
Well, so much for randomness.
Yeah. Screw that.
2 10th Doctor stories in a row.
Yeah, how does that... Well, maybe...
2 10th Doctor stories by Stephen Moffat in a row.
Wow. That's... Wow. Yeah, wow. I think it's broken.
There should be some kind of mulligan. You want to build in a mulligan so that we can't do two stories in a row from the same Doctor?
Sure.
All right, so I'm building in that mulligan. Starting now.
Okay.
All right. We're mulliganing on that. All right, so we're not doing The Girl in the Fireplace. Someday, eventually we're probably going to have to throw that rule out because the selection pool is too small. But for now, it's still feasible.
Maybe we could say that for New Who.
So what? No,
never mind. Forget I said that. That's way too complicated. Let's just say for right now we can mulligan.
Okay. All right. Warriors of the Deep.
Oh.
A 5th Doctor story.
Ah. Okay. So
which I just watched.
Ah. Well, there you go. I believe I said a few weeks ago that it was highly unlikely that you'd have to rewatch stories that you just watched again.
Yeah, well,
or maybe it was
wrong.
Maybe it was the other way around. Maybe I said that you wouldn't have to watch stories that you were going to have to watch in the very near future. I don't know, but okay.
I guess I shouldn't say too much about this for fear of I don't know, for fear of coloring your impressions of it or anything.
Oh, okay.
It is a 5th Doctor story, though. I will tell you that.
Ah, well, that's good. It's good that I got to at least know that much.